running. It'd be really unfortunate if somehow something was broken and some sort of audio wasn't coming through. But we're gonna assume that everything is good because I've double checked this stuff probably 1,000 times. So there's some sort of bug right now where your names aren't showing up. So I'm just gonna go through everybody, see if I can find the person we're looking at. It's gonna be one of these Roadhogs. I'm pretty sure it's this one. Let's go check the Discord again. Oh, that's not what I wanted. Alright. So yeah, we're going with Speedy Nicks. So let's get this show on the road. I guess the first thing would be to say new meta. They like broke everything, I think. And made it sounds like, I mean, I haven't really been able to play much, but from watching and from hearing people kind of like talk about what's going on, it sounds like it's very much like a Roadhog Zarya type meta, or Roadhog Sigma maybe even. But the good thing about this meta is that it's going to really depend on people's abilities to play the maps, play angles, and learn, you know, the FPS mechanics are actually part of the game that most lower skilled players don't have. So I think it's actually, if something like this happens where we have like a Zarya Roadhog meta, I think there's going to be a huge learning curve where everybody kind of drops in skill except for like the highest ranked players. And then everybody's going to kind of slowly, gradually come up, and the community baseline of knowledge is going to be higher. So I really do actually hope that there's a Roadhog Zarya meta, even if something like that is going to suck for, let's say, like supports and yeah, mainly just supports actually. Like DPS should be mostly fine, but like supports are the ones that are gonna get the most caught out, I think. Alright, well, that Discord stuff is just gonna pop up every now and again. Hopefully nobody says anything bad in any of the Discords I'm in, because that would be terrible, bro. But I can't, I don't know how to get, I guess I could probably mute it, right? Is there a mute function? Am I a genius? You know what? I have an even better idea. Wait, where the fuck did Discord go? Discord broke? I'm sorry? Going off on a whole side thing right now just so that I could properly make sure I quit Discord. I'm professional, I swear. Quit Discord. So let's just look back at this, just make sure. Put my phone on vibrate. And let's look back at Roadhog. Yeah, so there's going to be a lot of stuff here where I think people are going to have to learn. But, I mean, largely, I'm only going to be able to kind of, like, speculate on things that you could do better, I think. And maybe point out a few things that you might have not noticed. Or maybe habits that you have that are detrimental to what comp you're playing. But if you're playing with Zarya Roadhog, yeah, you're going to have to basically be on point with your ability to frag. Because at any moment, the enemy team is going to be able to punish anybody who's not playing in that perfect positioning. So they're going to have a shield, which is going to give them a slight edge just in terms of safety and protection. But you're going to out damage them just because their Reinhardt is going to struggle to get in close against your composition. You're your composition right now is very capable of spreading out and kind of like putting pressure from multiple angles and surviving things that they shouldn't survive. Really, the Zarya, Roadhog, and Genji are the only ones who should be getting close at all. And Genji has dash and deflect, which will get him out of most situations. And Zarya has bubble, Roadhog has heal. So let's see. Let's just see how you do to start and what your team does in response. Rotating to the high ground. I like when players take high grounds and stuff like that, even if it sometimes take them a little bit of extra time, but when you're working your way in slowly like this, it could be really good. Okay. You're making space for your team. In the Roadhog, in the way that only Roadhog can make space for his team, by just existing in the back of the enemy team and making them turn around. So this is really what I'm curious to see, is how your team deals with moments like this. Because against the Reinhardt composition, it's going to be harder for them to kind of chip away because they have a shield and you don't. But once you get regrouped, I feel like you should have some sort of advantage. It's just in these downtimes, like your Zarya is already dead getting into this fight. Good hook on the Rhine. Blizzard, but you get pushed out of it. What a champion. Nice hook. Nice hook again. Alright, so let's go back. We actually want to go back a decent distance. Pause. Third point perspective. Sorry, I'm in the wall like that. Let's put the spectate overlay on. Okay, so this is really what we're going to be looking for here, is to see how your team is reacting to your pushes. Because I think what we have to be aware of in situations like this where you're not running a shield is that your teammates are naturally going to be a little bit afraid of pushing forward. So there's not always anything you can do about this, because there are moments where you need to push forward and there's absolutely no choice. But understanding the tempo at which your team is playing can kind of help you understand how long you can exist in certain spaces and how long you can pressure certain sight lines. Because if your team isn't pushing aggressively, then that means the enemy team has space to push you back. And I think that's what I was seeing in this first two fights here, is that you're going aggressive and you have confidence because you have healing and you can move throughout those spaces, and your team doesn't want to follow you because they have trouble moving in between those areas while there's an Ashe pressuring them. So especially like your support line, they don't really want to be pushing forward. Widow is not a character that's ever going to push into a space naturally. She wants to be able to like pick people off from afar, and that really just leaves you, Genji, and Zarya to push together. And I don't know how much the Genji has confidence pushing into the Mei. So this might just be kind of like compositional mismatch in a way, where your own composition is defeating itself. And this, I would say, is kind of like a pick thing on either yours or the Zarya's part, where like if you just went Reinhardt, your team has more confidence, but that doesn't necessarily mean that Reinhardt is the best pick or the only pick, right? You can still get value out of Roadhog, you just may have to work a lot harder. And you may not be able to get as much value out of Reinhardt if you're not as good. So the first thing that you do when you come around this corner is you throw your hook out. Now, what we have to be aware of, just to set a precedent for Roadhog, is that his hook is one of the most important abilities for two reasons. One, it's fragging potential, and two, it's fragging potential. And it sounds like I said the same thing, but I really mean two different things. Follow me here. Trust me. I'm not blowing smoke up your ass. So hook is going to be one of those abilities in the game where you're actually going to get a lot of value from not using it. It's the same thing with Honest Sleep or like anti-nade or something like that. It's the same thing once Genji's deflect is not used and stuff like that. Once hook is down, the enemies can play around Roadhog differently. So largely what you want to do is you only want to use your hook on situations where you can guarantee that you can hit it, and make people feel the pressure of your hook always being off cooldown. So this first hook you throw, it would have been great if you got the pick, because the pick potential is amazing there. But you missing it means that nobody has to be afraid of your hook for the next few seconds. And for the opening of this fight, the enemy tanks can push forward without having to worry about you hooking them out of position at any moment. But as long as you hold on to that hook, then everybody on the enemy team has to react to your pick and actually work around what you're able to do. So you throw out this hook, and that's kind of a little bit of a waste just because now the enemies can move around freely. I don't know if they're actually taking that into an account, but that's something that you always have to be aware of, is that once you have your hook, you can punish people, you can move them out of position, you can disrupt plays, you can do all sorts of things. But if you just constantly use it to get picks as soon as you see somebody out in the open, you're going to give the enemies a lot of space. So let's go back to this idea that we were talking about before, about you pushing and your enemy or your teammates not really pushing with you. So you get the bubble, your Genji's pushed ahead. He really should have gotten the bubble, that would have been better. But you're going to work your way up to the high ground. And during this time, your Zarya is going to move forward, and she's going to get a lot of pressure on her. Now, this is where I could see you saying that you're getting a lot of value, but your team's not really able to kind of like do anything with it. You feel like you're hard carrying. But the problem here is that you're not fulfilling your role as a tank while your team is pushing, right? So if you're going to play Roadhog, then you need to be able to actively affect the fight while your teams are also actively affecting the fight. Otherwise, you're just going to be playing this mismatch game where you're going in and then your team's going in and then your team's going in and then you're going in, and always be playing at disadvantage. So you go on a long rotation, which I said I love when players take the high ground, even if it takes a little bit longer. But you also have to recognize that your team was pushing forward. It probably would have been better to just go across the top instead of actually coming down the stairs. But now you go in, you take this rotation, your Zarya pushes forward first with the rest of your team. She gets picked as you come down the stairs. So you go from taking a 5v6 to taking a 5v6 just with different members, right? You get the pick. It's a 5v5. And now your team is too scared because the only person who was in front of them to protect them is now gone. And they can't actively see you because not only are you breaking line of sight for your supports, but you're also like your Widow and your Genji probably aren't looking through the walls to actively find where you are. Widow's just shooting as she sees fit. You're not able to get any actual support or healing. Your Genji pushes forward late and then he dies. So the problem so far with that fight has been mismatch pushing and a lack of protection or pressure from your part in the appropriate spaces, right? You're able to get picks, and Roadhog is great at being a DPS. But if all you do as Roadhog is be a DPS, then you're not fulfilling your role as tank, and you're leaving something to be wanted by your team. Great bubble by your Zarya. I'm gonna check this really quick, make sure it's not you. Okay. I'll have to respond to that after. Okay, so now we're kind of in this regroup phase. Zenyatta got picked, which is unfortunate. We're walking forward still because we don't know no better. And then our Zarya gets picked, and now we're in a 4v6, and this is pretty much unwinnable. This poking is perfectly fine right now because you got so staggered out. It's much better to just kind of chill and wait for the Zarya to get back. Just like try to not get picked, or try to have nobody should be getting picked during this phase of a fight, really. It would be very, very dangerous for your team as a whole. Like, it just delays the amount of time that you could have actually winnable fights. So this is a good counter hook. It's kind of just protect your Genji. But this is really what we want to look at, because this is, I think, so far gonna be your best opportunity to win this map, because you throw out ults, they throw out ults, but your ults actually come out a little bit better at the end of the day. I think, at least from your perspective, it does. So you get the Rhine, and you get whole hogged out of the Blizzard. The Blizzard gets no value. Back in that 6v6, and then Bob comes out. It's a nice sleep. So Nano helps Cesare get back out alive. We're going to look at the fight one more time, because I want to see if there's anything to say. Because largely what winds up happening here is that your team just gets the wrong matchups. They're able to force better matchups onto you guys. Like you get kind of delayed by fighting the other hog, and then May gets your Widow and something else. Oh, your Genji's in their backline, getting swung on by the Rhine. And there's not much you can necessarily do about that. Except I think you have one hook in this fight right here where you could have maybe hit that hook and it got the extra pick to kind of turn the fight a little bit. Sometimes there are instances where there's nothing you can do but frag, like just be good, lol. But like, so you hook the hog here, and that's a nice hook because you pull him out. Like it was a nice max range hook. But it doesn't actually do anything because he was already like in, like your Zarya and your Genji were already kind of like looking in his direction and putting pressure on him, and you're not able to actually one-shot him when you land this hook, and you're not able to now pressure anybody out. So this is just, I mean, your hook is just being kind of like thrown around. Like he even just walks away entirely, and eventually you get the Reinhardt because he pushes forward to try to, I guess, help the Roadhog. I'm not really sure why. But now this hook is on cooldown for this entire time, and if we go to your perspective, you have two nice hooks kind of in line of sight here. I mean, three if you think you're really good, but that Ashe is coming into line of sight. That May is almost, oh wait, who is that actually, because I can't fully see. Oh, that's your Genji, never mind, lol. But yeah, then I guess this Ashe is coming into line of sight, and if you're feeling really good, you can hit this Mercy here. But this would have been a good opportunity for you to get kind of like an extra pick and turn the fight there. But beyond that, I don't know how much you really could have done, because like I said, your Genji's in their backline. He's just gonna get finished. May's just gonna walk up to your Widow and she's gonna have no chance, and then you wind up losing by pushing too forward into their team. It might have been helpful for you to chill. I see that you almost actually have gotten another whole hog in this fight. So what I want to go look at is I want to see what your cooldowns look like in this fight now. Okay, so you pull the hog, and that's your hook right there, right? You're able to finish this Rhine, peel him off your Zenyatta, and then you walk forward while healing and try to get into their backline. You get Mercy. Okay, so I think the continual aggression may be another issue within these last two fights, but I want to see more before we go on and kind of like really say, because in this fight and in the last one, you kind of like got a pick on their backline by doing like a little flank around. First time on the Ana, second time on the Mercy, and after that you kind of stayed there, like you continued to try to deal damage from that position, but your cooldowns were pretty much shot. Well, the first time you had heal up, but the second time you had no cooldowns whatsoever, no ability to survive. So if you had actually just gotten that pick and then rotated somewhere else and just kind of left for a second, you might have been able to just kind of like continue to keep them staggered and continue to stretch out their resources, which would have been useful, because then when your team comes off respawns, one, you're already there, right? They don't have to wait for you, and two, they come into a fight where they may actually have an advantage instead of a disadvantage. And I think that's where Roadhog really is gonna start shining in this meta, is because he has such a consistent hook one-shot combo now that if he hooks, anybody is automatically dead, and he's really, really hard to kill as long as he can manage his cooldowns properly, which is gonna mean you only take fights if you have heal or hook up. You don't want to be, you know, like in a situation where you don't have either of them ever, because that's when you're most vulnerable, and that's when people are going to be looking to kill you. Like anytime people see a Roadhog, they're going to be like, oh shit, I either have to run from him or I have to focus him. Those are really the two. Like it's the same thing with Bastion. You either run from Bastion or you focus Bastion really hard. So like if you get into a situation where you have no cooldowns, there's a 50% chance that somebody's just gonna say like, I have to all in this Roadhog right now, because it's the only time I have to kill him. And that's gonna be dangerous if you have no cooldowns. So if you get into that situation where you pick the Mercy and then you kind of just like go back into that cafe area and wait the 2 seconds until your heal comes up, and wait the 3 seconds until your heal comes up, and just don't shoot and chill for a second, your team still loses the fight, but then you have options in where to go, and you could at least get one more pick and then have like heal to get out, or at least heal to, you know, get back to line of sight for your supports maybe, and then you can stay alive and keep them kind of staggered out. But I really want to see if you like, is this a consistent thing you do, or is this something that just happened those last 2 fights because you were feeling your hooks? I'm not sure there if you did this for the reason that I'm thinking, but if you put your head down, as if you were trying to do that thing to make your head hitbox harder to hit, that only works if you turn away from the person. If you just look down, your head hitbox doesn't really change that much. Like, it does slightly, but it's not really enough that it's gonna throw off most hit scan players anyway. Because if you're really solid on your mechanics, you should be aiming at the neck anyway, and if you look down, it's just gonna make it easier for them to hit headshots. Just keep in mind in regards to that last fight that take a breather doesn't just heal you, it also does 50% damage mitigation. So you would have actually survived if you had used whole take a breather there. Nice picks on this fight. It was a good opening. Yeah, so you just kind of throw your hook out anytime you see someone who you think you can hit. And I mean, it's not like a bad thing because your reaction speed is good. So it's like you're throwing out the hooks really fast and it's putting a lot of pressure on people, especially like the Ana and the Mercy. But like, now what do? You don't have heal or you don't have hook and you have to leave. And you just threw out that hook to try to what? Grab a Roadhog who is being Mercy pocketed? I see what you were trying to do there. I could appreciate it. I could respect it. It would have been good. He just kind of slipped off the wall. Nice. That Reinhardt was probably really annoyed after that one. Yeah, and this is the other thing too. You kind of like throw your hook before you even really get around the corner. That's a really good technique for trying to like hit hooks in small like windows of opportunity. But when you just do it all the time and do it willy-nilly when their team is grouped up, this Ryan has blocked like 5 of your hooks where you just kind of like thrown them into the abyss as you're rounding the corner, just hoping. Like, you're really playing like a Roadhog based on luck with your hooks, based on than actual skill. Like, you're able to hit. That's unfortunate. You're able to hit the hooks because you're skilled, but like sometimes who you get has been lucky, and other times you getting anybody at all has been lucky. That was a good hook. That was a good hook because you saw he was healing and he was low, and then you cancel the animation and actually do something besides just confirming the frag with your hook. That's a good hook. I like that hook. That's a tasty hook. It would be nice to see you try to take these shots without hooking people every once in a while. I think some of these situations, people are just so squared up on your reticle already, and then you hook them to like just get the confirmed kill. But it really would have been nice for you to just one-shot that Ashe in melee, and then turn around and hook the Mercy. It would have been a difficult maneuver, but that's happened a few times now where you've hooked someone who was already kind of like squared up on your reticle and didn't know that you were behind them, and then you don't have hook to, you know, confirm that second kill that really would have made that flank worth it. Because when you go on a flank, you essentially create a 5v6 disadvantage for your team. So the flank has to get value equal to the amount of time that it takes you to maneuver around the flank, right? So that flank you just took there was very, very short. So you getting one pick was equal to the value. But the flank you took on the first push, where you go around the staircase, you hook that Mercy and you only get her. And then all of a sudden it becomes difficult for you to get a second pick. And the flank has significantly less value, especially since your Zarya got picked before you got there. So in these situations, it'd be nice to see you kind of executing a little bit more mechanical skill in terms of your actual shots and not just executing your ability to land consistent hooks. Also here, this is just poor positioning because you neglect the fact that your team can't follow up to reinforce your positioning, right? So the enemies can surround you easily, one, because they have respawn advantage, and two, because your team has to sit on cart in a little bit, and they have to take time to actually like move to where you are. They were cleaning up respawns from before. So although you're able to kind of like push into the team and disrupt them a bunch, it wouldn't be surprising if you were to die right now, because this Rein could very easily just like pin you once the bubble's done, and then Roadhog could hook you before you even get a chance to heal or anything like that. And there's nothing your Zarya could do anymore because she's already bubbled you. Like you can't really expect your Zarya to just come in and save you just because you decided to try to push in super far. In a team setting, maybe we can work around that type of aggression, playing as an aggressive team. But in solo queue style, you cannot depend on somebody to save you for your mistakes. So it be like that. It just be like that. I'm glad you were able to disengage from that. See, like, look at, you're able to do nearly a perfect combo. You do like 500 damage to him, but it doesn't matter because you're blowing your cooldowns before you force anything out of the enemy team. Like, you're not getting enough value out of your primary fire and your positioning. You're really depending on your hook to really carry you. And then you're just like, you have healing, so it's like, you don't really need to think about it. You're just like, oh, I'm 300 health, I'm gonna heal. And then, like, it saves you from certain situations, and sometimes you don't use it in a timely manner, or you don't have the ability to because your positioning isn't good enough. So like right there, we can look at it from a third point perspective, even just to kind of like really see. Let's pause this so that I could actually get that replay thing on. Okay, so you're the Red Hog. So you're on cart, because I mean, you also have to think positioning is relative to your team as well as the map, right? So you're alone up here technically. I mean, the soldier's there, but the soldier's not really going to be able to do anything to really save you. You could create space for the soldier, but you can't sacrifice yourself to do it. And I don't ever think that you want to be trying to create space for this soldier, because he should be just waiting. Like, he should be quiet as fuck up here, wait and attack them from behind. But that's none of my business, because I'm reviewing you, not him. So you're kind of like poking here, you keep throwing your hook off cooldown, it's whatever, the McCree's poking you out to the left, so you're gonna go get him. You kind of like overstay your welcome almost a little bit there, which is, that was a nice flash cancel from him, but you miss a few and you keep trying to push him, and he almost, like if he hits like 2 headshots here, I think he puts you in really dangerous positions, but he's only able to hit body shots and misses a few of them. But look at your positioning in relation to your team, right? So you kind of moved off to the left-hand side and cleared away your hook on the McCree so that you couldn't punish anybody who was pushing your team middle. So your team gets pushed middle. They only have Zarya bubbles to try to prevent that. And well, nope, they have sleep. Let me not let me not neglect Ana there. But they're not able to prevent that, and they wind up getting pushed over because the Roadhog also has his team behind him because you're only pulling this McCree Mercy. And the Ana and Zarya were the only ones who was there. It looks like there's a little split from behind, but with two of you already down and you as the lone Roadhog on the flank, there's no real reason. There's no like real reason for them to be here because they're not gonna. The enemy's resources aren't stretched thin enough for this to have as much impact as they want it to have. They're going to try, but the Ashe can even just poke them. You know, Immortality Field misses, I guess. That's unfortunate. That's just sad. But the Reinhardt's able to kind of like shield and protect himself. And up front, the Roadhog is going to be able to survive and still cause you kind of like attention issues. If you push forward, you're going to be able to punish this Reinhardt. It's your team is not playing cohesive at all. It looks like you have three separate splinters almost of attention, where it's like your Ana has been kind of like looking after your Zarya a bunch, and the Zen who became a Baptiste is often following around this soldier. Like if you remember, the Ana nanoed the Zarya before just so that she could try to help her to get out, and now this is happening with the soldier and the Baptiste. And then you and the Genji are kind of like left out to your lonesome to do whatever. And the fights that you've won have always been the fights where all of you use your ultimates together, or all of you happen to push at the same time. The fights that you were losing are consistently these types of fights, where the Zarya and the Ana died, and the soldier and the Baptiste pushed in after, and then they died, and you've been kind of just existing in the flank the entire time, and not really paying attention to what either of them are doing, or using your hook to help them in any way, just trying to throw it out to get frags. So your team is kind of all over the place, and then your positioning is kind of like haphazard, and that's what we were looking at before. So let's go back to that, because I kind of forgot. Yeah, the soldier and the Baptiste kind of derailed me, I'm not gonna lie. It was a good bubble by your Zarya. So you're gonna push forward. And this is really what we want to look at, is this open courtyard area and how you decide to manipulate this open courtyard area when now they're at a kind of disadvantage, right? You've been able to keep the pressure on as much as I was saying you guys were all over the place. You've been able to keep the pressure in this fight. Reinhardt gets nanoed, you get hooked, and you die. So this is really what we're looking at, is these few frames right here. And this is similar to what we were talking about before, where it's like, okay, you're playing aggressive, but the rest of your team isn't playing aggressive, or your rest of your team isn't feeling confident in playing aggressive, or they get poked out because they don't have a shield, so they stop playing aggressive. But once you cross this threshold, I'm going to slow it down, and we're going to see what happens exactly with your team. So Ashe gets picked, Reaper pushes Soldier. It's the same thing that happened the first time, right? The Mei pushes up to the high ground and is able to kill your Widow, which is of no fault of you. It's just a lack of awareness on that player's part and an unfortunate occurrence of that other enemy player being able to identify a weak point in your offense, right? So you push forward, there's a Zarya Moira, and in somewhere there's a Baptiste. I don't know, let's see, can we see that Genji? Is he in the bunker? Yeah, he is. He's close enough. So you're on the other side of choke from the rest of your team, and you get bubbled, and you have heal up, so there's no reason for you to necessarily run yet, but now you're taking time to actually be able to deal damage. You're not going to be able to kill this nanoed Reinhardt, but you're still going to try to chip away at him and put pressure on him. You get, he takes, what was that, 2 swings on you, maybe 3? Let's look at your health bar just to see what kind of pressure you're really able to put onto some of these people compared to what they're able to put onto you. So you're full health. 1 swing, 2 swings, 3 swings, and then you get hooked. And the rest of your team is on the other end of the choke, still not pushing forward because they don't feel confident, they don't feel comfortable. I don't really know what their idea of what's going on is, But this is where I can understand you saying like, okay, I tried my hardest and like it wasn't my fault that we lost. Where it's like, okay, if your team pushes forward there and plays with the off your aggression and the attention that the enemies have put on you, then you'll probably be able to kind of like carry that fight out just based off of the aggression that you or the attention that you carry from the enemy teams. And your team's not. Your team's kind of like sitting back and waiting too long to really take advantage of any of that, and then you're losing because of it. But what I will say is that there's a lot of minor things that you could be doing better in order to carry out this game legitimately. Because the team fights you won, you didn't win them just because of you. You won them because your whole team used all of their ultimates to try to push together. And it really just happened. It wasn't like, oh, I'm gonna push with my team. It's like, oh, I'm gonna hit my Q button now, and then you all happen to hit your Q button. Like, you didn't carry this game. You just played splintered and played well. You created a problem for the enemy team, but your teammates didn't capitalize on that. It would have been a carry performance if your team wasn't able to do like the basic things, like, you know, pulling off their grab properly, or getting through with the blade, or getting through with the tack visor. Like, there were moments where your team really was putting in their portion of effort, but you weren't playing together and you weren't using your resources to their maximum capacity. So it's kind of just like, sure, you could see how this is an unwinnable game, but if your playstyle is going to be that rigid, then there's going to be way too many of these games. But I also think, like, you were showing me how many wins you have just playing like Roadhog, but Roadhog I feel like is kind of a little bit busted right now, just in terms of people's understanding of how the game works. I think favors his playstyle right now in the first place, and two, I think his damage output is just absolutely ridiculous with how they overtuned it. I mean, you could do 170 damage, no headshots, just with his primary fire, you know? I think what I've been saying is largely all over the place. So I'm gonna kind of summarize. Did somebody on the enemy team leave? I guess so. I'm gonna kind of summarize. Or either that or they haven't picked maybe yet. And fucking finish this sentence. Jesus Christ. I'm gonna try to summarize the ideas that I've come across when looking at this. I definitely think that this is one of those games that you can consider like unwinnable when you're in it, you know? But I think upon review, there's some key things that you can learn from these games, and some tells about your playstyle that may show where you could look to learn and how you could look to kind of like evolve who you are as a player. I'm not gonna lie, that instance made so little sense. You stepped in front of the Roadhog and somehow killed the Zen, I think? Or the McCree or something? That was weird. Let's go look back at it. I think you made the right choice there. I think here you're feeding a little bit too much ult charge to the enemy team. I think you're peeking a little bit too hard. I can see that you want to get a pick as early as possible and start the ball rolling, but like, let's be honest, there's no reason that you should be giving them this much free damage for basically nothing in return. Like, I guess you're getting ult charge for your Mercy, but like, it's not gonna matter as much as the McCree having high noon, because you don't have anything to counter high noon with your composition. So you don't want them to get ults as fast as your supports get ults. It's just not equitable. Okay, so this was a good kind of like step in front. Oh, no. He gets your Zen. All right, that was just confusing then for me. So it was a decent turnaround because he's in your back. You should. I think here, though, you have to recognize that the fight is lost, and this is something that I think is really difficult for people to kind of internalize in the middle of a chaotic battle. But once a fight is lost, you kind of gotta just leave. Like, it's over. Even if, let's say, right, you just leave and you're like, all right, let's get out of here and let's just back up. There's a good chance that you'll be able to come back on about the third tick and get a good recontest if you just leave. But you staying here basically guarantees them the point, because you would have been the closest person to the point and you would have been able to kind of like maneuver around and found an opening into them potentially, or at least get into a position where they have to pay attention to two different people pushing at the same time. Let's say if you're Zarya pushed from one side and you push to the other. But once that fight's lost, you're not pulling that back. Just leave. Don't give them the 600 health and all of the, you know, all of the separation it creates between you and your team. So that McCree's done that twice to you now. And just to kind of give you an idea, I'm pretty sure you're a hit scan player. I think you play McCree, I would imagine. I don't know. Who knows? But what's probably happening in that McCree's mind is he's so used to hogs in this elo that every time he sees one approach him in close quarters like that, he flashes. Because essentially what happens is every hog is going to have the same tendencies you do. Oh, is that a squishy that I can just hook in one shot? Well, then let me just hook him and one-shot him. But within certain ranges, you shouldn't be trying to hook McCree like that, especially if he's doing that consistently to you. This is only the second time that's happened, but I can see this being a thing that shuts you down a lot since you always hook instantly. So as long as you're playing against a smart McCree, they're going to be able to shut down your hook in close range against them. That McCree probably has other deficiencies. Like we were talking about before where I said, well, if that McCree had hit like 1 or 2 more headshots on you, you would have been in critical danger. He's probably not that mechanically great, but probably a little bit better at, you know, just the fundamentals of like positioning and game sense, like when to use his ultimate and where. But like your big fat Roadhog head should not be hard to hit for somebody in this elo. I'm not really sure about this whole hog. I mean, I would say it's a bad whole hog, but I can't even understand why you did try to pop it in the first place. There was like nothing you could have done there because whole hog gets exponentially worse based on range. So you would have nearly no chance of getting any actual value unless someone else managed to cancel the enemy's whole hog and you were able to close the space because of it. But even then, it wouldn't have been much. See, this is a good example of kind of like the let's call it hook discipline that I've been talking about. So that McCree there, it was a perfectly good hook target, but like you know that he's waiting to really get value in on a flank. And you should know that if a McCree is in a really weird spot like that, he's probably gonna high noon. So you should wait until he actually hits high noon, because then if you throw a hook at him, his only options are to cancel high noon and leave, or to take the hook and get high noon canceled. So you could have one erase the ultimate and confirm the hook, basically, by just waiting and being more patient. Like, he's still kind of like peeking there and poking out slowly. You have to at least sometimes, not all the time, because like I said, it can be really good to just throw out that hook. Once, if you're on a flank and nobody knows that you're there, if you throw out that hook and just yoink someone, or if people are pushing a corridor and you jump out of nowhere and yoink them, it can be really good sometimes. But you have to have more irregularity with your habits. You have to be a little bit more creative with how you are able to use your abilities, especially if you're going to be playing Roadhog, which only has 2 abilities, heal and pull. Now, like, there's not much to the character, right? So like right there, you could have at least taken a second to read what he was trying to do, to read his movement patterns before you actually throw hook, before you actually commit to something. But now, let's say if you throw that hook, there's the high noon. I like that. I like this. Come on, get 3. Oh, that's unfortunate. So this is exactly another prime example of what I was talking about earlier. Your flank is able to get more value because, well, McCree's ultimate doesn't get as much value as he may want in the first place, but also because you're able to land a kill before you have to use hook, and it secures you too, and opens up space for your team to push into you. One kill is not enough to open up space for your team. One kill is enough to open up, or like to remove the penalty of you not being on the front line. 2 kills is enough to open up space, because now you make a mismatch. That's hilarious. I'm not gonna lie, I don't know why that Ana stayed there. I would have ran as soon as I slept you. Ooh, unfortunate. See, that's one of those instances that your reaction or your reflex to kind of like throw hook instantly would have been great. That was a good attempt. I like that attempt just because Reinhardt's a really important pick in this fight. Just because your team recontesting, if the Reinhardt's not there, they can get plenty of more value against this enemy team, because they're playing a composition that doesn't. Not only does your composition not want there to be a shield, but your composition wants to not have a shield themselves, and they don't want to play together. So like your Junkrat really wants to be able to just chunk into that Roadhog, and that Ashe really wants a clean duel against the other Ashe. Largely because, I mean, unless your Ashe is the inferior Ashe, your Ashe should always want an equal and fair duel. But I don't think your Ashe is the inferior Ashe. I just haven't seen evidence of that in the first place. What happened there? Why did you just blow up like that? I think you went out there with low health already. Yeah, so you only have like 200 health, and then you push out too quickly. Similar thing to what I was saying before, where it's just you're kind of overstaying your welcome, or like being overly aggressive without your cooldowns coming back. Now we roll into the third point. They have Whole Hog and Shatter. I haven't seen this Reinhardt hit a good Shatter, and I don't know if that's because you've been playing so split. All right, Ana, I don't know why you were all the way out there. Good hook. Good return hook. Okay. And this might just be the end. There might just be nothing you can do about this at this point. They still have, you know, high noon to kind of push in, and I think it's just you there for the most part. Nice hook back. Unfortunately, you can't get the healing, and nobody's there to contest, or nobody chooses to contest. Okay, I can largely say that this is one of those games that was, I want to say I don't want to say unwinnable, but I guess from your current skill set, it would be unwinnable, right? Like, there's nothing more that you could have done with your current understanding of Hog to kind of push this fight push this game to the next level. I hate saying that games are unwinnable, because unless you're playing an Overwatch League, there's always room for you to be that much better than the enemies, right? If you're in Diamond, then if you were a Masters or as good as a Masters player, then every game would be winnable, because you'd be that much better. And that should really be what we strive towards, I think, in some capacity, right? You don't want the excuses. You want to be the best, then be the fucking best, you know? We don't back off. There is nothing we consider unwinnable here. Because the second you start saying it's unwinnable, you stop giving as much effort, you stop looking at as closely as you should at the game and what you could be doing better. So let's talk about the things that you can be doing better, right? More discipline on the hooks. So we talked about early on and said you could use hook to kind of like threaten and alter the way that the enemies are playing, but you can't do that if your hook is constantly off cooldown, right? So I love the aggressive throws. I love your ability to kind of land hooks on squishy targets in chaotic fights and kind of find angles that people aren't expecting you to come from immediately. The problem is that there's no changes in your play style. Once the enemies adjust to your constant aggression and your constant off-angle pressure, they were able to, first of all, they swapped the composition to kind of deal with that. They started playing things that they felt more comfortable in, kind of like maneuvering around that. And the other Roadhog just started looking after you, right? You became his matchup in a way. And every time you came across him and you and him had time to fight, what wound up happening was your flanks took so long and the off angles that you took so long that he was able to bring a friend with him every time to fight with you, pretty much. He was almost never alone, and neither was the Reinhardt. They almost always had that Mercy healing them. They almost always had, you know, like the McCree or the Ashe also shooting alongside them. And that wasn't just a matter of your team not playing with you or not playing through you enough. It was also a matter of your timing and your understanding of how to effectively use your character to help your team and not just yourself, right? Overwatch isn't such a game that you can carry and win a bunch of fights by playing for yourself and playing with your own ideas only. You have to be able to read what your team wants to do. And what it really looked like I said earlier, was that you were segmented into 3 kind of departments, where it was you, or maybe even 4. It was like you, then it was the Genji, then it was the Ana Zarya, and then it was that Zen slash Baptiste and that Soldier slash Widow. And that is a huge problem, because the enemy team, even though I don't think they were as good, like I said about that McCree, I don't think he was really hitting any impressive shots, and I don't think that Ashe was any better than your Ashe, but they were able to play more cohesively because they were kind of like just they were grouping up. They were actually playing together, actually pushing at the same time and using their abilities at the same time. So using your hook more than just instantly, actually holding it, actually pushing with your team and slowly kind of like prodding your way forward, doesn't need to be the dominant way you play. But if you could introduce that even 10 or 15% of your play, then I think you'll be able to throw a lot more enemies off in the first place. And also you'll be able to find your way into games that you don't naturally feel comfortable in or don't feel like they're winnable, because every game is going to require different skill sets, really, right? If you're playing Tracer and you're always in the enemy's backline, that's how you play Tracer, but they're playing McCree May, then you're not going to have a good time. You need to learn how to play your same character just in a different way to get value against different compositions and against different play styles. It really is a matchup thing, right? Because that Roadhog was always sitting with his Reinhardt, always sitting with his team, which meant every time you push into them, it didn't matter if you hooked someone, because he was going to hook you again soon. He was also looking to punish you. The Reinhardt was also there to shield them. You know, you had to fight through too much because you were so often playing on your own. So let's move on to the second thing. The second thing is going to be your kind of like aggression on the flanks and your consistent, like, you gotta go, you gotta push, you gotta go. If you take a second to like kind of chill and wait for cooldowns and go walk to a mini or something, you know, take a cigarette break mid-fight, you know, I don't know, but basically just kind of like wait for a second, show a bit of patience in your flanking, because every now and again you're going in there with too low health, and although it's maybe only like in that entire game, I think I only saw you do it 3 or 4 times. Those 3 or 4 times do wind up kind of like mattering in terms of getting your team more on like pace together, making sure that you're getting maximum value out of your flanks, you know, making sure that you're creating the most of every situation, every opportunity you get. And once I've said this before, I don't know if I said it to you, but I'll say it 1,000 times. Climbing past platinum is nothing but nitpicking. You are just maximizing every single thing that you do. You know how to play the game, you know how to play the characters to at least a decent capacity, so much so that everything is just going to be shoot a second faster, shoot a little cleaner, have a higher accuracy percentage, make sure that you don't, you walk 12% less behind cover or 14 more paces forward, so that you can maximize the amount of value you get out of this. It's very, very small, nitpicky stuff that's going to wind up mattering a lot, because the small advantages that you take over good players will make you a great player. Beyond that, I think there was a lot of things that you did well. I think the small things I kind of talked about midway through, like, you know, when you go on the flank, don't throw your hook out instantly if somebody's already squared up or whatever. Like, I think those things can help you out a lot. But those 2 ideas, understanding how to use your hook in different ways and how to have patience with it, and understanding how to get more value out of flanks by actually patience. It's just patience. Your playstyle just needs more patience, which is funny because I didn't make that connection until just now. But I think all in all, that was one of those games that you can consider unwinnable if you think about games like that. And I think that you played a pretty good hog. I could see why you would still continue to climb after that. But I think eventually you would probably hit a roadblock where you're playing against better and better tank players who are able to block abilities, and better support players or who are able to kind of like negate you in certain ways, you know? So yeah, I'm not gonna look at the other one today. Hopefully an update doesn't come out and I can do it maybe tomorrow or something like that. Excuse me. I'm sorry for getting back with some sort of delay, but if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, let me know. I don't know who my one viewer is right now, honestly, but thank you for chilling, I guess. I'll see you next time.